So in the last episode, we got the neck fitted onto the body and we got the tuners all installed. So we're kind of getting very close to getting this guitar into finish. However, as I explained last time, there are a couple of little jobs that we need to finish off. And the biggest one is to get the electrics sorted out. Now, obviously, I've got the control plate already fitted onto the body, but we can soon get that off. And to go into it, I've got a couple of 250k CTS pots. If you've seen my channel before, you would have seen me fit 100 of those. I'm using 250s even though I've got a humbucker in the neck. With one tone, it's always going to be a little bit of a trade-off, but I've found that to work for me in the past, so I'm going to go with it. Pretty standard 22 microfarad orange drop capacitor. I've got an oak style switch, 3-way. It comes with 3 different coloured switch tips, none of which I think I'm going to use because they're kind of the Telecaster shape. I'm going to get a black top hat Telecaster style switch to go on this one, just to make everything look pucker. I've got a Switchcraft output jack and a couple of little knurled barrel knobs. So we'll get all this put to one side, we'll get this plate off the guitar, get the guitar out of the way, and we can start setting all of this up. And the first thing we need to do is just to get all the components mounted onto this control plate. Fairly straightforward stuff. As long as you remember that you need to remove these little tags that you might be able to see there just on the pot body. Just a little locating tag. We don't need that, so we just snip it off. A pair of side cutters. And while I'm putting all this together, I just want to kind of explain and elaborate on something that I said a few weeks ago now, when I said that I'd had some kind of fairly significant change happen in my life, which in turn is going to kind of affect the way I do things on this channel. And you also might remember that on a fairly regular basis, in the past, I've kind of had to stop producing content for this channel because I've had some extremely busy times in my life. And basically what's been happening there is, for the past 6 years, so that's even before I started this channel, which seems like a very, very long time ago, I've been studying part-time as well as working full-time for a degree in psychology, mainly because that is a subject that's fascinated me for many, many years, and kind of with my educational background, growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was a very different situation back then. Basically meant that when I left school, kind of going to university wasn't really an option. As it happens, I found out during my studies that people that went to the same kind of school as I did had about a 1 in 22,000 chance of getting to university. So the fact that I've kind of done it in the first place is quite something. But of course, it's meant that I've had a very busy lifestyle for the last few years. However, a few weeks ago I got to dress up in a fancy suit and put an even fancier cap and gown on, and I got the opportunity, which brought a huge amount of pleasure to me, of taking my mum to my graduation ceremony. As you can see here, the upshot of all this is I'm going to have an awful lot more time on my hands now than I have for a long time, which means I can focus a lot more on what I'm doing with YouTube, which hopefully will please you all. Now, in reality, I finished my course kind of to all intents and purposes in the middle of last summer. However, this time of year is an extremely busy time for me normally, so I haven't really been able to reap the benefits of not having a degree to work on just yet. But we're getting to the point where I will. Additional to all this is the fact that I'm rapidly approaching the 10,000 subscriber mark. And I always told myself that when I hit the 10,000 subscriber mark, if I ever did, that I would do a couple of things. I'm not going to tell you what. That will be an announcement for when I do hit that mark. So if you are at all curious and wondering what that is all about and haven't subscribed, you'll know what to do now, won't you? However, one of the things I do want to do is kind of expand what I do in terms of YouTube. Now, this channel has been almost exclusively guitar building for at least the last 3.5 years. And it's done very well for me, and I am eternally grateful for all those people that have contributed to that. However, I do have interests in making stuff and building things that go beyond that into the more generalised DIY and woodworking scenarios. So I want to do more content that is focused on that kind of stuff. However, and I'm looking for some feedback here, but my feeling is I don't want to dilute the content of this channel too much. I would much rather actually start a second channel where I won't be posting as regularly as I do on this one. This will still be my main focus, but when I do want to put those other videos out, I will have a method of doing it without kind of interfering with what I do here. So that's something that's going to be happening in the next couple of months. I'll be developing a little bit of content for that, and that can start to go out before too much longer. What I would say is when that happens, I would be eternally grateful if people could drop over there, watch that content, subscribe to that channel so we can start to build that as well. But that is all going to be for a little bit down the line. For now, I'm going to be grateful for the additional time that I've got on my hands. I'm going to just focus on firstly getting this build finished off and then moving on to the next one, which I'm hoping will be a really, really good one. I'm already putting some materials together for that. It's costing me a fortune, but I think it's going to be a great build. Okay, so that's assembled. I'll get some wire and some other components out and we can start to get this all soldered together. Now obviously I can't do all the wiring on this because at some stage I'm going to have to wire the pickups in, but we can get the basic stuff done, wire these components together and get the output jack wired in as well. Okay, so that's all of the wiring done, and I'll just talk you through what I've done. We'll start at the output jack, and that's basically a lead from the output of the potentiometer and a lead to ground on the volume pot, which will give us our output. In terms of the tone control, basically what we've built here is a very crude low pass filter. So we've got a resistor and a capacitor, which is all you need, and that will cut the treble above a frequency that is decided by this potentiometer. And obviously with this being adjustable, when you adjust that, that will adjust that frequency, which gives you your tone control, if that makes sense. Next up, we have the volume part, very straightforward. The more you turn it up, the louder it gets. Moving from there back to the switch, these selector switches have 8 lugs on them. We only really need to use 6. So we have 4 of them, which we fasten together. And for that, I've used some bus wire, because that keeps things nice and neat. And then we'll put the bridge pickup into this lug and the neck pickup into this lug, and that will complete our wiring. Obviously there's some ground wires that we need connecting too. In terms of this bus wire, I'm a big fan of it because it can make your wiring very nice and neat, and it is quite robust. And it's actually easier to do than individual bits of wire to those terminals. However, it comes in a roll, and when you get it off the roll, it's quite kind of kinky and not very straight, and I like it to be straight because it's easier to work with that way, and you can keep things nice and neat. And I've got a little trick for keeping this straight, so I'll just go and show you how I do that now. And the way I do this is quite straightforward really. I'm going to just clamp the wire in a vise. I'm going to get the other end into the chuck of my drill, just tighten that up, and then just spin that up, and there we have wire that I'm pretty sure, if I got that against a rule, would be straight as a die. And as we can see there, apart from the bit that was in the chuck of the drill, actually dead straight. So that's another little quick tip for you there. There's not a lot I can really test on this just yet until I get the pickup sorted out, but I can just test to make sure that the switch is working properly. And to do that, I'll get my multimeter. I'm going to set it onto the 200 ohms range, and I'm going to clip onto that lug, which should be where the neck pickup goes, and with that switch in the forward position, which would select the neck, we should get some continuity, which we've got. And then if we switch it to the middle position, we should still have it, but then move to the back position, which would be the bridge only, we have no signal. So that all works nicely. Swap it around, so that is now the bridge pickup connector. Switch is still in the back position, we've got continuity. Middle position, still got continuity. Forward position, nothing. So that is all working absolutely spot on, which means we can put it to one side and concentrate on some other stuff. And I think with this wiring sorted out, we're running out of things to do before we can start the finishing process, and that is exactly what I'm going to do next. As I said in the beginning, I'm not going to use the compressor and spray gun on this one. I'm going to be doing it with rattle cans, purely just to show you how I would do such a thing, because I understand not everyone's got a compressor, a spray booth, and the means of using those two items. So I've got a couple of spray cans on the way. But before we do that, we've got a lot of sanding, we've got a little bit of grain filling and stuff to do, and then obviously there's some staining as well. So that's next up, but that's going to be in the next episode. I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed that. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. We're getting tantalizingly close to that 10,000 subscriber mark, and I would be overjoyed if I could get that sorted out and done this year. So yeah, do those two things if you haven't already done so, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.